guys, today we're going to talk about priorities, and not so much like what your priorities should be, but actually how defining priorities and how to define them and how it can change your life. And that's really what my experience has been, is that I didn't have the correct priorities defined early on in my career or early on in my life, and I made some pretty big mistakes that kind of cost me. I didn't fail at life necessarily, but I had some really rough moments because I didn't have my priorities set. And the way I like to look at priorities is almost like a program in a sense. And I had this other post on this is kind of the same topic. And it's kind of like, if this, then that, So what I mean by that is, if your priority, let's say you say God is my first priority, then if this decision is honoring God, then I either go to the next priority, or I can do it if I want to do it. But if it's not, then you just stop, right? You don't have to worry about, like, if, let's say it's God and then spouse. So those are really like my first two priorities. So God's first, and then my spouse. And then I don't have to go and ask or talk to my spouse about this decision if it doesn't honor God. Like, I don't have to worry about that. And so everything flows through that sort of thing. Another way to look at it is, I sort of envision this, how you feel like, have you ever seen the thing where the wine glasses are all full, or the water glasses are full, and then someone pours water on top and it just sort of kind of goes down? It's kind of the same process, is that first one, is the one that is the top priority, and everything kind of flows down through that. Another way to look at priorities, giving you a bunch of different ways to look at it, is through a lens, so, they say, well, how does this decision work? Well, I need to look at it through my lens, through my priority lens, to see, is this really part of my priorities? And, what happens is, of certain lenses, all of a sudden, like, let's say I was looking at a red picture and I put a red lens in front of my face, I'm no longer going to see the red there. And that's what priorities do. They actually take things off the table, and they leave only the thing that matters. And that's why priorities have such a clarifying effect. And so in my life, one of the things that I've noticed is that early on, when I made mistakes, I looked at priorities kind of like goals. Like, they were something to achieve, but if you didn't do them, that it was just like, well, at least I tried. And that's not like, so if I said God and then family, let's say God and then my spouse, and I say to my spouse that I'm going to be true to her. I'm only going to be a one woman man. And that's a priority for me, as she's my priority, then, but I fail at achieving that goal, then I've failed big time at life, and I've let her down. And so that's not acceptable. So instead, what I say is, priorities are like covenants. You don't have a lot of covenants because you can't break them. So I've made a covenant with God and say, okay, he's first. I'm not just going to try to be a good Christian, so to speak. I'm going to make sure that every decision flows through that. And as soon as I find out that maybe if I violated this, I bring it back into correction. So for instance, let's say, actually in my real estate career, I was working on Sundays and was not taking any Sabbaths. I worked Saturday, Sunday, Monday, it didn't matter what day it was. And so immediately I took off Sundays, not because Sunday is the special Sabbath day. It could be any day, really. But it was the day that our family sort of worshiped God together. It was our day that we spent time at church and did those sort of activities. And so it made sense to take Sunday off. And when I did, what was great was when I honored God, He blessed that. But that was also showing that He was a priority. And the same thing goes for my spouse and my family, that I used to say God, family, business. But yet I worked every day, I worked late. And so immediately I stopped working at 5:30. And then I also took Saturday off and did that by appointment only, because I was in real estate. Really hard to take Saturday and Sunday off. But I had Sundays off. I only worked Saturday by appointment, and I got off at 5:30 every night. And now what's funny about that was that the only people who got upset were actually the other agents. It wasn't my clients. My clients completely understood. It made sense. We worked around my schedule. I worked around their schedule. I was flexible in other ways that made up for the fact that maybe I couldn't meet them right after work, and just really served them. And it worked out. Like I said, every time I've honored my priorities, my life has been sort of blessed in that area, because I think that in particular, like, if God's first and then your spouse is second, I think God is actually what that God wants in that situation. So But as far as priorities go, you need to write these down. Like, you don't have to have mine, but you need to write them down. You need to have, like I said, a covenant mindset with that. And what that means is, like I said, it's unbreakable. A contract is something that you sign, and then if two parties don't agree, if situations change, you can actually tear up the contract. You can change it. There's repercussions for violating the contract. You come up with that up front. And typically, there's a time limit on a contract. A covenant is forever. And it's unbreakable, and that's the thought process behind it, is that you can't do that. So you don't want to bear a lot of covenants, in a sense that you want to have all these different types of agreements out there that it's going to be really hard for you. But you definitely need to go ahead and set your priorities. If your parents are part of those priorities, if your family is part of those priorities, if your workplace is part of those priorities, you should identify them up front. Because for example, like say you have a trip with your friends, and your friends want to go visit, some new, maybe a sports park or a new attraction somewhere, and it's going to be like a weekend in Vegas or something with friends. Well, you have your set of priorities. Does this honor God? Maybe, okay, we'll move on to the next one. If this honors God, then does it honor my spouse? Well, I'm not going to go to this activity and do anything that's going to be, dishonoring to my wife. So no. Does it dishonor my kids? Well, I have spent a lot of time with my kids lately, so this weekend is going to be okay. Does it, and if your work is maybe part of that, then does this actually like violate something with my workplace? Is there a big project going on and I'm taking time off on the wrong time? Well, see, if you have the priorities already mapped out, then okay, well, if they're having a big project, then I can't go to this. I'm going to have to say no, and it frees you up to be able to say that. It may not be the best example in the world, but just like I said, having these priorities in place, writing them down and actually understanding them up front really helps you make decisions in the future. And one of the best things that I learned one of the posts I have on the blog post talks about the research that says that the best CEOs on the planet, so the best leaders on the planet, running corporations, actually their one skill that they do well is make decisions quickly. And anything we can do to make decisions a little bit more quickly and in line with what we want is going to help us in the long run. And so that's kind of the whole point of priorities and covering that. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, please go ahead and subscribe to these videos. Give me a like, give me a comment somewhere. And also, I'd love to see you on my blog. If you want to have a discussion about that particular topic that I'm writing about, or you want to write about something else, please let me know. So thanks so much for watching, and make it a great day.